All right. All right. I hope everybody had a good weekend. I'm just working on another one-page comic. And last week was a really productive week for me. And one of the things that, you start to think about when you have a really productive period, you want to, of course, keep that rolling. But at the same time, what specific factors came together to make that be so productive? And for me, that's the constant thing that I'm constantly working on. So on today's episode number 15 of Everyone Wants to Listen to My podcast, I thought we'd talk about that. I thought a good point of discussion that could be had today is if you're having a period of time where you're feeling like your productivity level might be higher than it normally is, well, how do you go about maintaining the integrity of that? And how do you go about keeping those juices going? And I think I'd love to hear feedback if anyone tuning in has any insight to that for how it works for them. But I think that from my own experience, one of the things that helps me out is to keep plugging along. Okay, so this project has gone to this extent. It's time to jump to this one, and it's time to jump to this one. It's time to keep that energy flowing, to keep that movement going. That and the fact that I become bored really easy. I'm not bored like in the sense of, oh, there's nothing to do. I got nothing, not that kind of boredom. Not the boredom expressed by kids. I'm bored. Meanwhile, they're doing this fantastic little dance and acting out a scenario that exists entirely in your head. Clearly you're not bored. But so, I jump from thing to thing, from medium to medium. And then the thing that helps me is these one-page comics. Oh, we got somebody here. Let's throw in a comment. Here's the first comment of the day. How do I stay inspired to keep working on a project? Welcome aboard, Frank, by the way. I stopped worrying about what others will think, especially when the project is still in the rough stages. Good for you. That's perfect. That's exactly it. So Friday, I had my grandkids in the studio with me. And because, it's PA day and, the kids need to be occupied somehow. And, well, can they come over to your place and do some activities, Dad? Okay. So the kids are with me. And one of the things we decided to do was have them to come on the show and let's do a comic together, because their energy level is far substantial to what our output energy level might be. And I think it worked out really well. And I'll show you some of those results in a second. We got another comment, I think, popping up here. PA Day all the way. You're sure right. Yeah. It's I gotta star that. That's so good. To prevent burnout, I do work on something and jump to a different project. Then I'll go back to the first. Yeah, that really does work. I think that as I appreciate immensely, and I look at people that can just sit on one project and stay with that project, and that's their core focus. I mean, that's great. Or I'm going to do this specific series, and then their entire time for the next amount of their entire output for the next period of time, I guess I'm getting to, is just focusing on that series or that specific thing or that specific book. And bearing in mind, while I'm, I've been finishing A Village Haunted, the series that I was posting on Instagram, at the same time, I'm doing other work for other clients. And then, of course, the one-page stuff again. And I didn't want to showcase all of my one project right to its completion. I wanted to give it a break and just jump right back into spending this time with people tuning into the streaming on some one pages again. Because for me, I think it keeps my juices flowing so they can make it through the day far more readily than having to jump from one project to an entirely different project, a full project. And so because for me, one-page stories are so short, and I can jump from medium to medium. That works really well for me. But that's a lot to do with my personality style or my creative flow style, and working fast and pushing envelopes about what specifically am I trying to accomplish with any given thing and so forth. So I think that, like Frank says, switching from working on one project, you're starting to get your juice worn out on it, jump to another one and then jump back. I think that that's entirely a really smart way to go about stuff. If you're a person that has a challenge with lockstepping in on something. And again, it has a lot to do as well with how we go about creatively putting together our works. Some people have to do that. Some people have to put all of their time onto one thing. Some people have to put their focus onto one thing. And then the speed at which they work and the deliberacy at which they work also adds into the mix. I mean, they've got to do it that way. They just have to. It's how they function. And there's nothing wrong with one way or over another. It's whatever works for us individually as creatives to get the things that we want to get done, to find that voice that we're looking for to execute these projects that we're trying to execute. And it's no different in whatever creative field it's in. There's a lot to be said for that. But whatever we find works. It's healthy to take breaks from one avenue for another. It's healthy to, if that's where your headspace goes, is that you get overly locked in on something and it takes the soul and joy away from it, take a break. But if taking breaks takes you out of your project because that's where your headspace works, well, you know that yourself. Don't follow anybody else's hard, fast rules. Don't follow anybody else's perspective that this is the way to finish a thing. This is the way to do it. Because that's never going to work for you. That's what works for them. It's, a challenging enough thing as it is. Some people get very spiritual and esoteric about the process of creating. And others don't. Others just get right into the mix. For them, it's almost like a battle, or it's like a process of exploration. I don't know. It works uniquely for the different person. But what we found out on PA Day was what is reminded to me very, very visually. And I think some of the people made some comments that were watching the stream on Friday about the gross productivity of the kids. I'll show you. So we did a one-page comic on Friday, and in our one-page comic, I'm going to pull the banner off there for a moment, and I'm going to pull the overhead scanner out. So our one-page comic amounted to 6 books, or a six-page comic. So this is the output. Now, the stack, excuse me a sec. This is the stack of papers of drawings that the kids did. Okay, I'll hold it up to this camera. It's a good 3 centimeters thick, but the stack of images that they did for this project, and they just kept churning stuff out. But we actually had to omit stuff out. There was little subplots that they had intended of shrink rays and astronauts' height being stolen from them for the Martians, and I'm going to pull myself out of here so we can see this. So we omitted that stuff out, and here's what we came up with. And so there's the one-page comic idea. Martians plot against the Earth, but they fail miserably. And from this point forward, it's just compiling these images of pages that the kids had into a narrative and following underlying structures, of course, editorially. But I'm trying to harness all of these ideas that the kids had. And so page 2, and so the few panels that I'm able to do as we're jamming together is my little ways of helping. But there's things that we decided, like the astronaut has to talk a different way with the aliens, and so we chose the color of word balloons as the avenue in which we would use for that. And then one of the kids chose this narrative device where we would label everything for people that might not understand. Like people might not understand that the Mars that's on the title card page has rings because they're cool. And so because I didn't draw rings on my Mars, silly old me, no rings, but it's still cool as far as the kids were concerned. So I took the narrative that they're espousing to me as we're putting this together, and I tried my best to write down what they were saying and make a little bit more cogent sense out of some of these sentences that they were putting together. But things like, look, it's little aliens. I want one. I can take it home and put it in my dollhouse. I mean, that's fantastic fun. So the metal thingy, earth thingy, and then you get these assemblies of a couple of different pages of scribbles and doodles of aliens trying to stomp on people. The earth thingy alien, the astronaut trying to stomp on or collect or grab the Martians. The Martians fighting back. Little elements like that. Those are a lot of fun. And sentences like you're only going to get this from the imagination of somebody who's really in touch with their childhood when they say something like, "We don't like that," in relationship to being stretched or squished to death. I love it. And then "you aliens are mean" is the response to when they try to break his leg or jab his leg in half. So this is one of my few contribution panels. I had a lot of fun doing this with the astronaut getting zapped to death. And the fact that they kept drawing different ways for the Martians to pull out their laser gun to zap the astronaut. It was just fun to just mat those in the same page together. Why not? Why, really emphasize on the gun. But the gun shape changes left, right, and center, and I really like that. So this page was a lot of fun. How you doing, Philip? Philip has joined us there. Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of comments here, fellas. I'm doing my best, but I think I'm caught up. Yeah, Frank's PA Day all the way comment. Okay, so the next action we have is, of course, the resolution of the first story, which is the astronaut lands on Mars in his metal thingy, and the earth thingy gets out and immediately starts to collect the Martians. Martians fight back, eventually winning against the earth thing astronaut. And I'm a little late today. Oh, you're always welcome. Always welcome. I appreciate people stopping by to say hi. So then, again, using our running thing of the gold dialogue representing the astronaut and the white dialogue representing the Martians, wraps up on this page here. But this closes the first story arc of drawings that the kids had put together, and takes us in it with all this mass of drawings that they had collected in this very brief amount of time that we did the streaming on Friday. We just tried to assemble those in at least one, and unfortunately, we couldn't just keep it at one. We had to jump it up into two little story arcs, but I think they fit together pretty well. They gave me 5. There were at least 5 different story arcs that were initially put in there. That's why this one Martian's so tall, is because, and this was from a sub story arc where the Martian uses his laser blaster zapper, and it steals the height from the astronaut and gives it to the Martian. So we just incorporated that into this we dropped that subplot and just incorporated it. He's the one holding the thing, and Jay said he's so proud, and that's why he's so tall after he got the astronaut. So kids, man, kids have the greatest imaginations on the planet. And so this let us jump into our second arc, which is a spaceship comes back from a scout ship comes back from outer space, and of course remembering that it left one of them behind on the planet Earth. And this is why he says this place is neat. This is a panel that was submitted to us. This is a character drawing that was submitted to us by Seven. So Seven's here today. There's your panel inserted by the kids. They didn't want to use your subplot of material that you put in by Sasquatch because they don't like Sasquatches, and that's fine. I just did a Sasquatch book recently, and I'm not a Sasquatch guy either. So anyways, so this is Timmy left on Earth, and then we used the representation of green to represent that's what means he's on Earth. We left Timmy on Earth. There's Timmy. This place is neat. Earth is green. Good. So then comes the dialogue of the carrot bomb with the shot from the big gun. And then, of course, arcing back to come back to Mars itself. And then the second very brief story arc concludes with Mars destroying itself. Well, the bomb destroys Mars. And then Mars with rings because they're cool. No more rings, no more Mars. And all of our sound effects, all of the explosions and things were supposed to sound like sneezes, is how the kids had came up with the sound effects of kablooey and the like. And then it leaves with, as my grandson Jay puts it, this could be a sequel, Grandpa, of Timmy, the alien left on Earth. So that's the end of it. Our one-page comic story ended up being 6 pages done by a couple of kids in their old fart in a very brief amount of time. So I think it was a lot of fun. Philip's got a comment here. I actually started a little comic strip. It's in really rough pencil form. There's no way I could get it done in time to send you. Well, just, do it. I do intend to finish it regardless. The idea amuses you. Yeah, that's the whole idea. The whole idea is when it comes to any of these things that we've got in place is that the act of just doing these one-page notions in the first place is just to instigate creativity in ourselves and push ourselves in ways that we may not normally do so, and to move ourselves down paths or avenues or styles that materials, whatever it is, medium, whatever it is that we haven't used, that just shake from one thing to the next. And for me, that keeps my juices flowing. That's the thing that I started talking about at the beginning of the stream today is, and then Frank has some good input on this as well. Like, what do we do to keep our juices flowing? What do you do to stay inspired? Last week was a really productive week for me. All said and done, that's 10 pages of comics we did last week alone. And I'm not saying that in anything to be like, we did 10 pages. That's not the intention. The intention is I did 4 pages through the week. Like, I got confused in my days. I said goodbye on Thursday. Have a good weekend, folks. Because I thought it was Friday. Between a couple of different appointments that I had, and I think Artcasters was on a Wednesday night, I was absolutely convinced that Thursday was Friday. And so Friday was a bonus day. Having the panel done first thing in the morning. Oh, that's great. Phil's got a comment back to just go for it. Follow it and follow the juice of it. Yeah. Right on. I'm really happy to hear that, Phil. I'm really happy to hear that, you're going on with that. I really look forward to seeing it. Anyways, Friday was a free day for me. Friday was a bonus day for me on last week because I had thought Thursday was Friday, largely because it was just a really productive week between the stuff I have to do when I'm not doing the streaming and then what I'm doing during the streaming. It was just all around productive. And the output of that was here we are with Friday. I got my grandkids visiting me for an activity day, and which means Grandpa occupy the kids. So we went for it, and we did this comic jam together. And the fact that they came out with a 6-page book that I just then edited together and put out, and it's now, you can look at all the panels in your own time on Facebook and on Instagram. We posted them all there. But we're just throwing that into the mix, and we'll include that in volume 2 of One Page Comic Extravaganza when we put it out. So what's Philip saying? You do that? I do that all the time. I totally lose track of days. I figured that just comes with age. I stopped aging at 39. That was it. No more birthdays then. So I wouldn't know. I think if it's for me, it's probably dissociation. It's just dissociating again. Where's the world? Where's reality? So anyhow, I got these things edited last night, and then I put it together and posted it this morning, and then I sat down to do this little short comic of an existential monkey. That's what this is, an existential monkey. And so this chimpanzee, which is not a monkey, chimpanzee's an ape, but I always, play with that interchangeably, to some of my friends' annoyance. But anyways, Phil tried to deny his age until the teenager at the movie theater gave him a senior discount. Oh, snap! Okay, so what the heck was I saying? Oh yeah, Existential Monkey is just this page where a monkey's going to wax philosophic in one panel, and then we're going to go into the fart joke in the next one, because that's I spent a weekend with grandkids. Right now I have a few projects. Frank says I'm warming up by turning in some thumbnails I did last year from practice into a one-page comic. It has nothing to do with any story I'm working on. Just a fun fan. Awesome. Yeah, that's exactly it. Just jump at it. It's just a fun thing. I'm catching up, Frank. My favorite characters and Captain Goggles are just hanging out. That's cool. That's cool. That's the second thing that you can do about those little side things, these little side stories, these little side arcs, little quick one-off projects like the one-page thing, or something similar to that where it's just a limited little, here's 1, 2, 3, 4-page thing, where it can be a side story. It can fit into the larger contextual narrative of whatever your bigger project is, There's a lot to be said for that. I like that, the liberation of that it can give people, because it can allow you to not feel as confined as you may feel in a main story arc by having a sub-story arc of a couple of other characters and what's going on for them. So yeah, that's perfect. I think that's the kind of thing that makes you go and explore avenues that you just could not afford to do in your larger planned thing. I think that there's an affordance in that to tell stories. It's like the way that other people that have their project with their characters will set up scenarios where all those opportunities and stories that they just couldn't do in any governable amount of time in their own lives. Well, maybe they can set it up that some of the people that they know that are also creative can assist them in doing those story arcs, in short little ways. I always find those projects to be really fun. Those are really lovely drawings. I like how you illustrated the business of the trees in the background. Busyness, sorry. This is your story's nothing connected. It has Batman and Superman mixed in. Oh, even Phyllis, I was going to laugh at that too. I do the fun stories with one-page comic strip Toronto Life. They're just fun jokes. Yeah, single-page comics that are just jokes is that's my jam. I love doing it so much. I'm working with the alcohol-based pens we talked about last week. Well, I got to do something with this. So that's what all this background detail is initially roughed in with, in this form. And then the structure and the buildup of like what I've done with the pencil here. This is just alcohol markers and a Fodenosuke black pen. Whereas this is, and then a little bit of pencil scribbles in the trees. Whereas this is a primary, I'm using this thing right now, a primary printer. Look at the size of that pencil. That's pulled up a lot of the detail inside the face. And then I've got some hash work I'm doing here with the Fodenosuke to bring in these little details and textures. But the core amount of information was put down with the alcohol-based markers. They're fun and they're good, but I find that because they dry out so quick when you're using them, or because I don't feel they keep up with me. Now, maybe if I got a better brand or something, that might change, but I find that I know a lot of people swear by them, but I find them to be more challenging than not. And because they're alcohol-based, they don't play as well with all the other kids in the schoolyard that I use as I approach things in a mixed media kind of way. But I'm trying to emulate texture and busyness in a forest with abstraction, with abstract shapes. It's not realistic, I guess, but it works in the sense that you get a feeling it's a forest. So thanks for the compliment anyways there, Phil. So Phil, what do you do to keep your juices pumping if you're still here? I'll put that to you. And anybody else that's tuned in and hasn't weighed in on this, I'm just curious as to maybe what you go about doing in your projects to keep your juices moving. I really do like the idea of fun side stories, as Frank has described, to just keep it rolling, just keep things spitting out, just because, But anybody else that wants to feed in their thoughts on that and what they do to keep their energy level up, please feel free to do so. I think if anything has been example to me from the grandkids being in the studio working on this one-page story, is there in the comments that I wrote when I posted those today, I talk about how fantastically unencumbered they are, with how liberated they are with just pure exploration and just pure, I'm spitting out hot facts. This is this, and this is because of this, and this has happened in this way. And they're not concerned with, the ways that their panels are being executed. They're not concerned with how A fits into B initially. It's just raw. It's a raw creative energy. And the liberation that affords them to be able to do whatever it is that they feel like doing it's phenomenal. It's, I wish that it was something that we could all just go to a different well in our wherever we live and sip out a ladle of that cup of energy, because I think that we all get caught up in, does it look good enough? Is that, if it's a likeness of somebody, is it good enough? Like all these little things that we put into our head that are almost like cutting down our free-form creativity by expectations and by, these little arguments that we make about what it is that we're specifically doing. I think that can really monkey us up. Philip says, I'm still trying to figure out how to keep my energy up. I've been constantly burnt out and tired of being. I don't blame you. Maybe I don't know if it's a health thing. That's a challenging thing to deal with. If it's a sleep thing, that's a challenging thing to have to deal with. If it's a creativity thing, a pure creativity thing, that there's always a million ideas out there of how you can try to overcome some of that. But first and foremost, I mean, for me, what really helped me out was to make sure that health-wise, I was in a place where that was there. And I think for me, making sure I'm sleeping at night and making sure that I'm at least sometime at night. I've always only ever slept for like 4 hours a night from the greater part of my life. I'm just a person that, I might nod out for 50 minutes once or twice a day and just brief little cat naps. But I tend to not be a person that has slept a lot. And as I'm getting older, now I'm pulling in 6-hour nights, 8-hour nights, go to bed at, 12 to 2, or you get up at, 8 in the morning. And Salty says that they're dealing with fibromyalgia and bipolar, so energy is erratic. So that's the thing. You get whatever these things are that we're having challenges with, and I'm sorry that you're going through that, Salty. It's that's a challenge, and people have to. I don't know why people are so lazy. The people that say that are jerks. We all have different things going on. I only do these streams for an hour and a half. On the outside 2 hours for a very specific reason. And it has to do with my physical health and not jeopardizing that and tending to some of the shortcomings that I have health-wise that I can't do it for longer. But once we come to some kind of accounting of terms and what we're able to do and accommodate with our time, that's when you can start to think about, really, what can I do to make it most available for myself to just sit down and plunk away at the thing I want to plunk away at? Or even if it's not that same specific thing each time, what do I need to do to be able to position myself to just sit down and do a thing, whatever the thing is? And maybe after enough of that's together, you could try, enough of that's executed, you can try to figure out how do I string this together in some kind of a way. But that's challenging. Philip says part of your job being so invasive and not having the time to do anything creative, that's a challenge. That's definitely a challenge. And, again, that's the hardship of this ridiculous capitalist society that we live in, that we all have to have X amount shekels collected in a jar and do X amount of things for whatever reason in order to keep ourselves in this old society. And sorry, I just my alarm went off on my thing. I just want to make sure everything was good. For years and years, I worked in a comic store, and it was in the way of me actually making comics the level that I wanted to. And it's not that I would ever, I'm not going to go back in my life and change anything, no matter good or bad. But at the same time, the place that I'm at now in my headspace and in my creative space is been a long time coming, and there's all kinds of things. I mean, I've got kids that are now adults that, years of, kids and raising kids and engaging on that level, and all these choices that we make in our lives. And then, of course, on top of that, all the choices that we have made for us in our lives, or that we have to, follow through on. That can feel like, when you're a creative individual, like it's keeping you from, the thing that you really want to do. But I used to have to try to find all kinds of different ways of keeping that going, which is why I keep the sketchbooks the way I do. It's a challenging thing for other people to do sketchbooks, but I think that looking at it as facilitation for you to be able to still continually do your creative exploration and output, helps to strengthen your soul, I found, for me, and to let go of anything, any expectation out of those sketchbooks of them being anything structural or anything that I'm ever going to do, or it's just getting some of this out of our system and some of this out of our head so that we can go on and function with all the normals, because yes, truly creative people we're extra normal. We're different. I listened to an interesting talk last night, and I think it's Klaus Janson, that said that most creative people, most artistic types of people, are somewhere on some kind of spectrum where we're not wired the same as normal people. Now, when I say spectrum, I'm not citing specifically the term we use in North America here of the spectrum, the autistic spectrum. I'm talking about, they cited it as some kind of spectrum, some kind of differentiation that separates our way of thinking and understanding the world that's different from others. And I think there's truth in that. I think that maybe we need to take account of that on some level for ourselves and just allow ourselves to appreciate that there's avenues going on in this road map up here and these noggins of ours that could very well benefit from accepting that, one of the ways it helps you survive is to be able to take this need to express or this need to create, and to find a way to facilitate that in whatever way, shape, or form it can be on any whatever level of scale. The active participation in doing that on some point is going to have its healthy benefit, because it's so intrinsic to who creative types are. If that's sketchbooks, if that's videos with your phone, if that's shooting in quick editing. I guess there's quick editing programs now and things like some of the social media platforms, things that, let's be honest, this guy doesn't understand. And whatever it is that you can figure out to facilitate that. Notes, having a phone, like I've got a fairly good sized phone that has a drawing implement stuck into it. And when I pull that out, I can draw right on the screen. So if I don't want to lumber around a sketchbook, well, I've got this phone. This phone's like 5 years old, so it's not like it's a fancy phone, but, and then you've got things like, I got a Kindle up here that I'll listen to books on, and everything is covered in fingerprints. I know. So I'll play books on this, but this thing also has a drawing program. It's a little bit larger than a regular phone. I can use that, if I don't want to carry around the sketchbooks. And then, of course, the sketchbooks that I do carry around aren't that big. They're manageable size. I mean, this is the size of my Gorilla Mitt, but this one's from a dollar store. So I think that sometimes, or if you have an iPad device, if people use those, I don't know how easy it is to turn those things on and off or not, but how do we keep our juices flowing is quite honestly a dilemma that has affected creative types for time immemorial. Thank goodness you're not working in stone. I mean, there's something to that, in that if you were working in stone, what would that give you? I'm going to try something different for a second. Give me a second. I'm grabbing another piece of paper. If you're trying to work, if you're a guy who works chiseling, rock, like Michelangelo principally considered himself to be a carver, to be a sculptor, and how much is that? Looking for a tone that's more similar to it's the same thing. Look at that. Isn't that fun how light works like that? These are all different colored stocks of paper that I have. And I was just looking for something that is close to the value of the alcohol-based markers I've been using, because we're going to switch tracks here on this, and I'm going to use a separate piece of paper for the remaining panel. So I'm just going to stick this guy over here and get him out of the road. Get out of the road. And we'll jump on this one now. As a sculptor, how do you carry around? What do you got to do? You can maybe carry around a tiny little piece of sketchbook or notepad. This is another thing. My son's girlfriend's bought me this for Christmas. It's a little lined book that I think she got from like a I don't know, some kind of dollar store type, and this is something that you could to do little doodles and notes on, and it was a fun little cover. It actually is embossed. It sticks right out there. How cute is that? Anyhow, but that's something that you can fit. I think most people could fit in their pockets, and make notes on for that. So maybe that's the only thing that a sculptor has for being able to keep their juices flowing without having to have a chisel in hand hitting a rock, But whatever it is, I think that any of those avenues is a fine way to explore the possibility, the potentiality of being able to continue that direction of trying to get something out in what limited time or what limited space that we had to work in. So, I think that it's really a case of how do we chase it down? How do we figure that out? If anybody's got thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. What do you do? Do you do a sketchbook? Do you do a something else? Do you have something else that you facilitate in order to be able to keep your juices pumping? Like, is it a computer program for you? Is it? I understand Jim Luan works pretty much everywhere with his device. He has specific places he likes to go and to work on things there. But it doesn't mean he's sitting there in the same static place that he's in every day in order to be able to do that. And I think that's a healthy release too, is to change your environment. So, but we got to do whatever we can in order to keep ourselves relatively, on page with the rest of us, the rest of the group. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is, we think differently, folks, and so sometimes it's a little more challenging for us to look at things in the same perspective as the people around us, because we're in our creative's brains. And so if we don't have those outlets to be able to explore these things going on in these creative noggins of ours, if we don't have these little releases, it's going to make us feel demoralized. It's going to make us feel a sense of Malaysia or Malaysia's country. We're going to feel that. We're going to feel a sense of malaise. We're going to feel a sense of dissociation from our spiritual or our creative centers. And so how do we figure out something that enables that for us, that connection for us? Here's something I want to try on a project coming up. This is an aside. Anybody else has any thoughts or anything on anything, feel free to throw them in. I want to do a piece where I then execute something like this. It's the same as a layer system when we're working in a computer, but when you work over clear papers like this, and you further your image by putting something on top of this parchment paper or tissue paper or wax paper, whatever it is, and you work on top of that, and that works into the image. I'm really curious and interested as when it gets into the scanning process, what that's going to do, what that's going to facilitate differently in the drawing when it's scanned and prepared for the next stage, which is of course formatting for a story. So this is something I want to put in. what I do is I keep a piece of parchment kicking around at times like this because of my big giant smudgy mitts. I'll have this sucker around. It flies around easy on the surface, but at the same time, it doesn't smudge the hell out of everything. So I gotta like that a little bit. There's a little bit of I have flattened out by putting down some of this alcohol-based marker into the dark areas on the face of our chimp here and on the neck area. I feel like it's flattened that out now. So I got to put a little more texture over top of that. Back to the thing we were talking about a moment ago, or I was blabbing on about a moment ago. Some people go to drawing jam or drawing jams. Jam's the first association for me, but some people go to live model drawing sessions. Some people go to watercolor classes or something of the like. They just have a designated day during the course of their week that they go to, probably a local community center or college or, the school gym in a small town, and explore the possibilities presented by just mucking around, trying a bit the old muck, and in order to find some release, to find some ability to get them creative juices out there, squeeze it out. There he is. I think that's the one. Found this white pen kicking around, so I think I want to put a little bit of use to him here. So I've taped this to just a couple pieces of masking tape at the top and the bottom, just so that one, you can see what I'm doing, but two, so that it's it's following panel to panel with the other two images that I've already got done. But I want to flip the card here and work on the gray, work on the intermediate color, the central value, and then let's put some darks and lights on that sucker, as opposed to all of the intimation of grays that we put in with the pencil and the dark and light, on top of the light surface, and apply darks to that. So we're just switching what the base surface value is. But sometimes even that gives you unforeseen juices that you might not have realized are that'll infuse something into your drawing, because it's having to make you look at things just a subtly different way, because you've done that transition from a light-based background to the intermediate-based background. And I don't know, that's anything. I'll do whatever thing jumps into my noggin intuitively along the way, just to keep the flow going, just to keep the energy going. So sketchbooks, what have we done? Sketchbooks, computer, iPads, phones, tablets, whatever, notepads, Kindles, whatever things that you can carry digitally for scribbly dibbling on. And, you can go to inexpensive places to buy drawing implements that work on all these devices. There's those rubber tip suckers that, of course I don't have one immediately beside me, but there's that works on most phones and tablets and things like that. And then there's, of course, your fancy drawing pens for your iWhatsits and your computer drawing platforms. There's simpler ways to execute those things. Carry those around in a little backpack or briefcase. So the digital avenues are all there. Having a camera just to snappy snap shots. Digital cameras these days are so much more accessible than traditional cameras, and that, coupled with the fact that you don't have the wait time of development, you don't have to worry about trying to process that film or the like. So I think that that's fun. That gives you an opportunity that you might not have had otherwise. And And then you've got your traditional sketchbooks, your little notepads in your pockets. You've got the availability of drawing classes, watercolor classes, pottery classes, whatever other things that you can do to keep those juices flowing. There's such a thing as doing a dialogue with people where you draw a panel and then they go draw a panel, or you draw a page and you mail it to your friend and they draw a page back and mail it back to you. There are people that I know that will get together and take a large piece of paper or a large piece of board or working surface, and they'll work together. This is like what a lot of graffiti artists do, is that a lot of them will work together where you have 2 or 3 people all working on the same painting together at the same time, and there's something to that, I'm just trying to explore a bazillion ideas. Bazillion, real word. No, it's not. I'm just trying to explore a number of different possible ideas that we can look at for what might be optional ways for us to get ourselves jazzed up, so that when we do have that affordance of a few minutes to do something, I'm good to go. I'm geared up. But that's, again, really challenging, right? Okay, I got an idea. I gotta get moving here. A lot of jibber jabbering coming out of this old fat cat, and not enough doodly doodly. So I'm just gonna put a rough structure of the chimp here. I know that the suggestion for this is existential monkey, but I am doing these are chimpanzees that I'm drawing. So, we've got some comments. I'm sorry if these have been sitting here and I've missed them. I apologize. Gary Hodges has joined us. Hi, Gary. Welcome aboard. Frank, I can also just suggest role-playing out a scene with just your characters, no script. You and a friend just imagining how a scene or a story could go. That's great, Frank. That's another great input. Could you record it as well? I don't know if here's old, with a tape recorder, or on your phone, or would it help to write those things down, or when he walks around a room mimicking actions, and another person sits there on a typewriter or on any kind of device and records your ramblings, right? That might be something. But yeah, that's a fantastic idea, Frank. Oh, Paul, welcome aboard, Paul. My local art group inspires me. They're mostly older folks, oil painters, watercolorists, sculptors, etc. I love seeing them create and develop as artists. It keeps you going. There you go. That's fantastic. There's not enough to be said about the inspiration that we garnish from looking at what other people are doing or engaging. I think is even more beneficial. Maybe, Paul, I don't know if you'd agree with this one, but it's maybe even more beneficial not to just run through the streaming things at all the people's pictures, but to actually go to places where people are doing, or to go to meetings, or like with local art groups and the like. What are you working on, Bob? I'm working on this. How about you, Larry? And I'm doing that. And here's a little something I've put together of that. And hey, I mean, show and tell times. Now, show and tell times are fantastically engaging for us all. But yeah, Paul, that's fantastic. Gary, Paul, it's full house today. Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of great input. Thanks very much, guys, for all that too. Frank says you can record it with a video camera on one of them stereo tape recorders. Thank you for picking up on that, Frank. Yeah, it's true. I used to ride my skinny skateboard with a transistor radio on my ear at one point. That's 1,000 years ago. Philip says, Paul, last night in Adam's stream, you guys left moments before you hopped on. Sorry, I missed. Oh, okay. Sorry, I missed you. Missed you, Phil. I was tired. That's the place of us all having a sleep. That's the great challenge of us needing sleep, fellas. That's an interesting thing. I really, really, I can't say this enough, how much I appreciate the dynamic of being able for us to work in a really weird and stretched out community that's spread across. Well, it, I find largely in our conversations this North American continent for a lot of people here. Not entirely sure where everybody is, but I know we're all not down the street from each other, and but there is different time zones at play here, so that's a challenge when you want to watch somebody stream or what somebody's doing, and they're in a different time zone from where you are. You know, that's rough. What do we got? Paul adds to his comment before about he loves stuff I wouldn't normally pay attention to, and he loves to engage with these other creatives in person. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. There's a couple of groups that I know. One group in the city that I live in has been meeting weekly or bi-weekly or something like that at a tavern downtown London for going on 10, 15 years. And man, just to talk about what all of them are doing individually as artists, and they work very differently from one another, and they're not all just traditional artists. Some of them are, one's a photographer, I know, and one for a fact is a sculptor. So it's interesting when you get that dynamic together. Frank says that he misses everybody: Phil, Paul, Mary. Can't believe Phil replaced Peter. There you go. Who's Mary? Anyways, you push play and record at the same time. Yep. And you like this, like that. You have the two buttons, right? Right, gotta get in the camera. Right? You gotta do it the correct way, or else it's not gonna work. Touchy hot button discussion last night. You wanted to chime in and finish a shelf that you were putting together. What was the touchy hot button discussion last night? Do we want to get into it? Frank, Peter? Oh, I got okay. Yeah, there you go. I can't believe Phil replaced Peter. Oh, that was Frank that said that. I thought it was Phil that said that. I'm catching on, fellas. Oh, here we go, Frank. I'll have to ask my mom to get me one of them Sony Walkmans so I can listen to the audio as I jogged at the Piggly Wiggly. There you go. But there is something that comes out of what you just actually said there, Frank. Huh? There's a dad move. Is that I turn everything into a talking point. Audio files, audio programs. Sometimes that helps us. Talks by other artists about process. People talking and relating about specific works, whether by writers or whether by, some kind of creative before and what their process was in their creative endeavors. Those are always interesting to hear those dialogues in our ears. And I think that there's something really to be inspiring us out of that too. I mean, you walk down the street and you got your Sony Walkman on, and you're listening to a talk by an illustrator that you yourself really enjoy. Why not? That's he might have insights on things like that you never would have considered. That's kind of great. Paul's actually the president of their group. Nobody else will do it. Oh, wow. Group of 60 artists. That's phenomenal, Paul. Where do I stand on midget as a term? That was the discussion. Yep. I think, or the topic, Paul says, was offensive words. Okay. That gives me a little more than the term midget, Frank. Because I give you a hot take on that. I'm 6'6". My relationship to midget and your relationship to midget is different. Anyways, battle lines. So I call people whatever they want to be called. I don't care. And I try not to use terms that people don't want. I went to high school with somebody who was who's now been in films. He does acting, and I just called him his name. I didn't call him anything other than his name. So I thought that was just more sensible. But if the topic was offensive words, I use a lot of them. But I try not to use words that offend people because of who they are and how they want to be addressed. Without certain things up again, the title of Adam's comic. I don't know Adam's comic, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's a challenging thing. You want to put a hot button topic as your title of your book, you expect the blowback. You don't get to say whether or not people have it or not. I do like listening to audiobooks or podcasts. It gets me going. Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's exactly another thing we can try to throw in the mix. I don't know. There's so many avenues, or documentaries. Sometimes, like, I like to have them playing in the background in the studio as I'm working. Even as we're talking now, I'm listening to Van Morrison's Moondance. Moondance? Is that what's the name? I think it's Moondance is the name of the album. Yeah, I'm listening to the Moondance album on my phone, stuck in my ear here. It's just like having that helps me having energy and juice to keep rolling as I'm going, because music's a really important thing for me. And if I can find an avenue that's going to help me keep creating and keep it flowing, then I'm going to utilize that on a regular basis. So if I have a thing plugged in my ear so that it helps me to make the marks, continue the mark making, yeah, I'll do that. It's a gigantic hand I just drew. Oh, there you go, Frank. Paul isn't just a member of over 60 over 60 artists. He's also the president. There you go. Paul Pay can do a commercial on that. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. I try not to offend. I try. Hey, you can't control how people are going to react to whatever you say. That's the way I've always looked at it. We all know that. You can't control whatever offense or whatever is going to trigger another person. It's just going to do it. There's nothing that can be done other than by yourself, other than the fact of, hey, don't go out of your way. You know, if you don't want to ever have to deal with those muddy waters, don't go out of your way. And when you do go out of your way because you think it's fun, then don't be surprised by the response. What do we got? I should try listening to audiobooks, Phil says. Generally, as to music without lyrics, his vocals can be a little distracting. Listen to musicians that mumble a lot. I think that might help. I find that I listen to, as my wife puts it, a fair amount of music that she can't make out at all what they're saying. And but I get some good inspiration out of these performers, but as my wife puts it, that it's just mumbling. So whatever works, right? Paul, got to get back to work later, folks. Hey, thanks for hanging out, Paul. It was great to have you. It's a tricky time I'm coming on. I'm sorry, and it's always nice when you're able to stick in there. Frank says he's listening to a tall Canadian talking about staying creative as I go over some old thumbnails. Hey, bingo, bango, bongo. I offended someone yesterday because I raised my voice when responding to something. I was told I need to learn to talk to people as they complained about me. Oh, that's again, that's a challenge. That's one of those things where, depending on the place and the scenario and the situation, of course, that sort of stuff is going to happen. There's, one of the things I always talk with my kids about is, hey, if you think that you're having a bad day and your response to it is to blow up a little bit in your frustration, you might just be passing your bad day on. That's my dad advice for the kids. And hey, do you want anybody and do you mind if anybody passes on their bad day to you? That's I give Mike Brady advice. I give Mike Brady advice. I give well, Bobby, if you're going to go over there, that's the place you're going to go to. And once you're there, well, that's the place you are because you're no longer here. Yeah, that's the kind of advice I give my kids. There's an old band from Quebec called Harmonium I love listening to. The lyrics are all in French, so I don't have to think about it. There you go. It's like the Box. When they sing an English song, everybody sings along with it. Remember, the Box is a band from the 80s that was from Quebec. And whenever their hit songs, they'd have the English part. Everybody I knew would sing along with it. And then when they'd sing their French lyrics. I saw a funny video, a funny sketch about Drake. And it's about French Canadians that are all, it's called Drake Watch in this sketch. And I don't know what it was from. It just came up and on my doodly-doo machine there. And there it was Drake Watch. So what are you doing today? Today we were looking for the Drake. And doing their best French Canadian accents. I didn't realize French Canadians like Drake that much. I don't know if he was French Canadian. I don't know. Actually, I can't tell you anything that Drake does. So, hey. All right. So I've got just a rough scribble in here of the chimp I'm having drop out of the tree. And but I think I'm just going to get right into throwing down some ink on this sucker. And I think I'll put it'll be a combination of white and black ink that as I'm exploring the face and the structure of things. Is this going to work? Well, it helps I have a white pen that works. So whatever anybody needs to use as the means to inspire themselves, whatever anybody needs to really specifically establish as their mechanism, is to establish as their inspirado to, I'm sorry, I still got something up here. Apologize. Whatever it is that anybody needs to utilize as their specific mechanism for, how they keep their energy flowing, how they see a ways and a means in which it engages them so that they continue working on the things that are important to them to work on. I think that there's merit to that. Of course, bearing in mind all those same things we have to say to each other about, as long as it's not at the expense of someone else's happiness. No. But if we can find that, if we can find whatever it is that keeps our flow going, we're halfway there. We're halfway there for whatever it is that we want to do for our output. That's the first half, is sitting down, standing up, dancing in a circle, whatever it is that enables us, that engages us to be able to do the work that we want to do. As soon as we can figure that part out, we're on our way. And as soon as we can do that, next thing you know, we're something's coming out of us. And with that, in that process of self-discovery that it's going to afford us, with that identification of what working parameters make their way for us to be able to do the things we do, you're going to see a better outflow from yourself. You're going to see more productive weeks. I'd like to have a productive week this week like we did last week. I really would like to do that. This is another thing I do for myself, is that if I do, great. If I don't, fine. And emphasis the same for both. And the reason that the emphasis from myself is the same for both is that if I set myself up with the hopeful expectation that I'm going to be able to maintain this arc of creativity, if I'm going to be able to maintain this outflow based on this expectation of myself, then where's the freeform creativity, and where is the working towards the objective I have to have this many pages, then I have to do this. If I do that to myself, it's going to put an additional burden on myself because I know that about me. Other people that works for, great. It's great to have. And we're not just talking about due dates. We're not just talking about, structured timetables and all, because I got lots of that coming out my nose. But we're talking about if you push yourself that you need this stuff to be here, then you'll start to do things like, it's not ideal. What I've just done is not as good as it could have been, but I got to get this page out. This drawing isn't perfect, therefore I'm not going to do anything with it because last week's were better and I want them all to be as good as last week's. Means you're not going to put that page out, or that whatever that work is that you've done out. The more that there's one thing about scrutinizing ourselves to try to improve and try to release things of X quality. But there's another thing to strip yourself of the opportunity to explore a thing, finish it, put it down, and get on with it. Next thing. And the next thing's going to be bigger. It's going to be better. It's going to be. And maybe it isn't. But it's going to be. And I like to think that positivity out there, it could happen. It'll be great. But if I sit here and I worry X amount of my time about, is it as good as what it was that I did last? Am I being as productive as what I was a moment ago? Should I have this criteria of specifically what needs to come out of me and how and where and why? It's kind of no different than not changing your underpants because your sports team doesn't lose if you keep your dirty underwear on. I see it in kind of the same way as that. And which might be harsh. It might be. But what I'm referring to in that is that the more that you lay this on yourself, the more that your expectation of yourself is entirely rooted in this value judgment system of what is good productivity, what is bad productivity, what should I be doing, what should I have done, what should I have accomplished, as opposed to just trying to follow through on the things that you've got to try to get done and doing them to the best of your ability and the time, as best a time as you can, and allowing yourself that. You'll get faster. You'll get more productive. Your creativity will open up more because you've unencumbered yourself with all of those harsh expectations on yourself. So I knew these hands were ridiculous. So I don't know if that helps anybody. But maybe at the end of the day, whatever it is that we're doing and whatever speed that we're doing it and whatever quality that we're doing it at, if it's not benefiting us as just being something that we get to do, and we get to do, well, here's the magic word of the day, unencumbered by the stresses, the thoughts, the social pressures, I haven't worked because of X, Y, Z. Well, little juices, little moments, like a lot of the things we've talked about, creative inputs, like seeing others, engaging with others, audio materials or video materials coming into our system, sketchbooks, clay in your pocket. I knew a ceramic artist that always carried a little piece of clay in his pocket, and he would fiddle with this clay. And then, he'd leave the house with this piece of clay in his pocket. And then when he got to where he was going, to the ceramics department he was in, he'd put the clay down on this little shelf. And then he'd eventually fire all these. And he'd have all these fantastic little things that he sculpted with his fingers and in his traveling processes, just to keep himself engaged in that active creativity. We're not talking about on any level what that did for his laundry, or for what the finished results were. It's just him doing something to be doing something. There we go, Frank. There's a controversial titled book. Frank says, Little Juices, Little Moments is the title of my self-help book. Can you do this on the cover? Little juices, little moments. By Francisco Salazar. I want videos where you're wearing a blazer. You gotta wear like a blazer over a sweater, right? High collared sweater. And when you talk the entire time, I want you to talk about this in this voice. It's about the little moments. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even better is if you say, "Let me ask my friend Captain Goggles what he thinks," and then you do a split screen with yourself talking to yourself. That's even better for me, Frank. What is it for you, Captain Goggles? That's the little moments. Well, I'm saying it's the little juices. Anyways. Yeah, so whatever you can find, whatever avenues that you can find along the way that for you allow you to do whatever it is that you need to do, that's perfect. That's the ideal. And that's what will keep you putting out the good things you're doing, folks, and keep your creativity going. This will be done today, and I'll put down the existential dialogue onto it. And this will be posted for tomorrow for the Instagram and the Facebook. But, this is just having fun drawing with Alkyd markers and pencil and a single pen. So I'm gonna try chopping in some shapes this way. See how it works on this paper. Ooh, it works nice. Nice unifier. So yeah, if anybody else comes up with any other methods, any other means that they find beneficial for how they go about keeping them juices going, if anything else, please feel free to put that in the comments, because I think that there's somebody out there that needs to see that. That might not be something that we've talked about today, as long as it's not something ridiculous. I like to sit down and listen to nothing but Neil Anka albums nonstop. Neil Anka, he's a relative. He's relevant today to all the kids of today. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he was. I couldn't tell you a Neil Anka song right now. Or is it Neil Anka? Paul Anka. Paul Anka. Yeah. No wonder I couldn't tell you a Neil Anka song. So yeah, whatever works for you. It's going to be different than the next person. But maybe the next person hasn't tried out whatever method it is that you use. And maybe that would be of benefit for them. But if there's a local place that lets you go to life drawing classes each week for $5, or if there's a group that meets in a cafe or wherever it is that Paul's artist group meets, like something like that, why not? Why not give it a try? Why not explore that and see what that helps? Phil says, IV? Is it IV? Would that help you? Have a main line and IV into your arm? Main line and IV of creative juices. Just right in your vein. Tap it right in there, See, big hands again. Edited. Boom, boom. As is the usual with me, I tend to draw the principal characters in a scene before I start going into the rest of it. So I'll be filling in the trees, and I'm going to try to figure out a way to make it look like motion as the chimp drops down. And as is the wonderful thing about working the way that I do, that I find liberating for myself, is because I'm utilizing the scanner in Photoshop now, I can draw this as the center panel and insert it in between. I can even go in and reverse this image to be facing the opposite direction so that I can have, a more connective flow for my page of him up in a tree, waxing philosophic. He drops down to the ground and then looks off into the light to say his pithy resolution there. It's some of the fun things that we can do when we're working in a traditional way or even working in a digital way. But as soon as we incorporate those two channels together, I can let go of what the measure of success of this page is right now, because I know that by scanning it and then reorienting the layout of the page, I've just short-stepped what may not have been something of any measure of success otherwise, because I've incorporated it into that secondary platform that lets me edit it structurally, as opposed to having to erase or cut and paste and move pages around or panels around on a piece of paper like we used to have to do back in the day, 1,000 years ago. One of my first books I ever did, I did everything on little 3x3 squares. And I drew the whole book on 3x3 squares so that I can then sit down, and I number the back as I did them in their specific order. But at the end of it all, I could sit down and reorganize the entire book and restructure the layout of it so that it afforded me the opportunity to change the organization of all these panels, so that, and because there's a uniform size, it just let me play with the story. It let me play with the way I structured it out. And do I want to do this as a flashback? Do I want to do this as a nonlinear? Do I want to do this as, well, whatever it is. So there's a whole bunch of different things that we can try. Draw on a notepad, and then eventually you'll scan all those pages and you've got a book together out of all of your scans. But in the meantime, don't let yourself get held back because you're not sitting static in a certain place. If you can afford yourself the opportunity to try to do some things away from your working area that can be utilized later, that might be the liberation that people need to feel like they're pursuing the things that they wanted to do. Bearing in mind, at the same time, there's people that I really need to sit down at my desk here and work. And that's completely valid. There's no, one way is not right over the other. So what counts is what works for you, and what and that enables you to engage in your projects in whatever way, so that you yourself can feel fulfilled. And that's what I'm looking forward to, folks. That's the stuff that churns my butter. Is people feeling good about their creativity and sharing it and getting to see it. That's what a gift that is. What a gift that is in an age where it's so ingrained into us to everything is some measure of commodity. Now there's an expectation that there has to be some expected recompense in order for you to be able to access other people's works. Yeah. But what an opportunity to see the freeform creativity of other people, because whoever you are and whatever it is that you're working on right now, or anybody that might be tuning into this, there is somebody out there waiting to see what you're doing. There is. Because everybody sees something different, and everybody is not everybody likes the same stuff. Everybody's got some project or some story thing that they've always wanted to see, and it just might be the one that you're going to do. So isn't that enough merit for us to all do whatever we feel so inspired as to do? Isn't that enough merit for us all to pursue whatever avenues we do in our creativity? What more validation do we need that there's somebody out there? And it might not get to them right away, and it might not get to them tomorrow, and it might not get to them however, but it will. Here's a piece of fun. There's an artist whose last name was Gupta. He's French-Canadian. Abstractionist. This man he stepped away from exhibiting as an artist and, after he retired from advertising work that he was doing as a younger man and so forth, he stopped doing everything so that he could take care of his wife at home. And he had gathered up somewhere in the area of, I think it was something like 300, 400 works in his apartment, or I'm sorry, in their little house. So he was always working this entire time. And nobody saw it. Nobody knew what was going on. And it was just before his wife passed away that it had come to someone's attention that came to see what he was producing in his place. And they had a big exhibition that his wife got to attend. And there were all kinds of people that were just completely blown away by what he was doing with mixed materials and abstraction and what visual images that he had to get out of himself and to express with whatever it was he could. And soon after, his wife passed away, and then he himself eventually passed away. But the affordance of that TVO documentary for me to be able to see this about Mr. Gupta changed how I looked at art. So whether he's consciously aware of it, wherever he is in existence or not, he's responsible for kindling in me something that, and liberating in me something that he might not have ever been conscious that he would do that in another person, just from the sheer act of creating it in and of itself. So who knows? Whatever means that we find, internal or external, whatever you can do, keeping them juices flowing. As soon as Frank puts out his book entitled Little Juices, Little Moments, all of us buy it, read that. That'll help us out. Depending on how he puts it together and how offensive it is. Could be in schools, could be inspiring entire generations of kids. All right. Well, I think I'm going to... it's 1:30, an hour and a half. So I think I'm going to call it. I think that I'll get this little panel here finished up and put this together in the Photoshop and stick this out tomorrow. Oh, there we go. Philip's got his title for his book. I think we need a whole series of these books, folks. Drawing on the Juicy Side of the Brain by Philip Chandler. We get Morgan Freeman to read your book. Do a live, get an audio cassette of Morgan Freeman reading Drawn on the Juicy Side of the Brain. Right? Frank will do a book tour. Let's just do a book tour with everybody across the country. Spread the word. Get the word out there. We need more and more juicy writers. Juicy books. The Juicy Book Tour. Yeah. That'll be good. I think that'll be good. That'll be highly inspirational. I think that we'll need somebody in advance of the tour itself to explain what it is, and not so we don't get lynched every time we go to. Phil and Frank, creators of the Juice series. There we go. Good stuff. All right. I hope that, I don't know, if somebody comes across the stuff we talked about today and that helps them out, great. If anybody has more inputs or more thoughts or ideas that they might think would be of benefit for anybody that might watch this, or please feel free to put it in the comments. I've opened up one-page comic suggestions again. I'm asking people to limit the amount of licensed stuff that they're requesting. But if that's all you got in your wheelhouse, that's fine. You can suggest that. It was fun today, Chris. Glad I sat in. Thanks very much, Philip. That's very nice of you. But if you've got suggestions for one-page comics, I've opened up the availability for suggestions again. So 1 or 2 sentences. I've put up examples of things like Frankenstein's First Day at Kindergarten, or the Frankenstein Monster's First Day at Kindergarten, or Frankenstein Monster does its driving test. Nicolas Cage does a COVID address as the Queen. Antonio Banderas is too sexy. Here's one for Philip. In the one-page comic extravaganza, one suggestion was kaiju rock paper scissor. That's great. Where's that take your head? So yeah, anybody has any ideas along those lines, feel free to please put those in the comments as well. Comments, I guess comments help for engagement. So whatever. But otherwise, I will be back at 2:00 tomorrow. I'll be back at 2:00 tomorrow. Sorry, and I'll be posting the page that I've drawn today while we're chatting away. But we still got book titles coming out of Frank here. Frank Salazar and his love for maple syrup. How about, Frank, how about you standing there holding a Canadian Leaf bottle of maple syrup and call it Frank Salazar, My Maple Journey? Huh? What about that one? That might work. Yeah. Please do, Philip. Please. I'm really liking the fact that you're feeling inspired by the Mars idea and to chase after that. That's fantastic. Anybody else that sees the one-page comic suggestions that are coming in for me and you want to take a crack at those one-page suggestions, do it. Please do it. Why would I ever say no? This isn't anything to do with my fragile ego. This is everything to do with, hey, here's an idea. Let's do this as a comic, and we all run after it. We all explore the opportunity that those ideas and those notions are as they're presented. So yeah, anybody sees in a one-page suggestion that they want to give it a go, even if it's one of the ones that I've already done, or you see in the one-page comic extravaganza book that I did, hey, go for it. I'm really excited to see the way that you play that song, But in the meantime, I'm off. Thanks for hanging out today, everybody. I hope this was helpful for folks. 2:00 tomorrow, we'll be back at it. I'm going to be opening up the gates to people coming on. I'm going to try to figure out a specific day of the week to figure out having a guest in for an episode, because I find that a lot of fun. And both work together live and to talk about processes. So, yeah. Good night, sleep tight, and pleasant dreams to you. See, my headspace goes to, here's a small chair for Tuyas to curl up in. It's a very Canadian reference, folks. Okay, I'm off for now. See you tomorrow at 2. 2:00 my time, 12:00 MST, 11:00 PST. All right, bye for now. Take care. Good luck creating.